Origin Chance, Home UX, and this is what do we know about new sixth generation fighters? Uh, about China's new sixth generation fighters. Sorry, yeah. So this is the sandbox video that he posted when the sixth generation fighter was like leaked from China. Somehow I missed this video. I don't know how, but yeah, this by Sandbox. I guess I don't know how limited knowledge was. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's still limited. Like no new information came out or something. Was what Hassan Prabhu's video, and YouTube recommended me this, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This is not new. It's a month old. I don't know how I missed it. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting because it's from Sandbox. Sandbox is one of those guys who like knows people in military. Like yeah, good sources and things. The information he like says like, oh, this is the thing I know. It's probably one of the like strongest information you can have. I'm pretty sure this is all in this video. There's not gonna be information like this. It's just gonna be speculation because there is no information out about this. Like it's just the video that people saw. So let's do this one. Remember, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. I like watching videos like this, like, I don't know, like, I like technology video, not fighting video, but whatever. Everything's a fighting video in a way. So this is like a technology battle, like whose sixth generation is better type of way. Is it NG80? Is this like China's thing? But yeah, the point is technology is being made. And it's like, when it comes to like anything like airplane, fighter jet, aviation in general, it's really cool to see how things progressed, where we are heading, right? I love technology. So yeah, if you want to do more reactions like this, definitely comment down. Let's do this one.
Last week, China revealed not one, but two new stealth aircraft to the world through
Loading.
what appeared to be a carefully staged series of test flights over populated areas that were sure to produce a slew of images and videos that could find their way onto the handful of social media platforms that currently dominate global discourse. These aircraft, despite being distinct in their own ways, shared angular, stealthy features and a tailless design, prompting many online to refer to them as sixth-generation fighters, though to date, neither the Chinese military nor the government have made any public statements about their roles or designations. To some, this revelation conjured a sense of foreboding and even doom, as it seemed to suggest China's efforts to field a sixth-generation fighter are rapidly maturing, while America's own sixth-gen fighter, now 10 years into development, remains on hold, pending some difficult budgetary.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure China already will call their sixth generation fifth generation because they are generation behind in that naming. So they're not gonna call that sixth generation anyway. It was surprising if like it just like comes out as wait a minute, that was just some another interceptor or like a mini bomber or something. Oh, this has nothing to do with the fighter plane. Who told you that?
Decisions to be made by the incoming Trump administration. Others, however, were quick to dismiss these new Chinese jets as little more than vaporware, making dismissing quips about made in China stickers and the nation's well-established propensity for making technological progress more through espionage and theft than through traditional means. And the truth, as is so often the case, really falls somewhere in between, with the revelation of these aircraft marking a significant development in China's rapid military modernization and aggressive expansionary goals. But while that significance cannot be discounted, it shouldn't be exaggerated either. Because while many have taken to seeing America's massive defense apparatus as something of a suit of armor around the Western world, one so large and powerful that it stands without peer, the plain truth of the matter is, an enemy doesn't need to build their own matching suit of armor to effectively wage war against the United States. It needs only to identify and attack that armor's weakest points. An effective archer doesn't need a sword, a shield, a helmet, and a breastplate to defeat a knight. He needs only a strong enough bow and the right kind of arrows.
Yeah, so I'm already like six generations. The way the plane looks, it looks is bigger and heavier. But then again, dogfighting is not part of the thing, right? Like all the modern planes is like distance attack, right? It's the technology what it is, right? Like stealth, like drones, better missiles, better radar technology and everything. The thing is, if let's just say hypothetically there is a battle between US and like Russia, this sixth generation plane might as well be like a Tiger tank from World War II. Like it works, it's big, and it has a range. Like a smaller tanks could overpower it in a way, right? Because especially like there weren't that many tiger tanks because it's like a precious thing, right? So if there is a war between the US and China somehow, this sixth generation planes could be a thing of their own, but that doesn't necessarily means that all the F-35s and planes like that would be overwhelmed or something. F-35 is going to be smaller, nimble, more available. Well, these planes might work as like a mothership or something for Chinese squad or something, air squad or something. NG80 could be similar thing too, but like they put NG80 at hold. So let's assume there's some kind of war. China might have this, but what level of will it like tip the scales in their favor? Did Tiger tip the scales for like Germany? They didn't, right? It didn't. So this is what I'm thinking, right? It could be something like that. But this is all hypothetical. There's not going to be any war between China and USA. I mean, come on.
So let's talk about China's new stealth jets, what they really mean for American defense, and whether or not they could represent some serious new arrows in China's quiver. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power. On December 26, 1893, a peasant was born in China's Hunan province amid a period of conflict and transition. By his 18th birthday, China's last imperial dynasty had fallen to revolution. By his 26th, a swelling tide of Chinese nationalism and the rejection of traditional Confucian values grew into the May 4th movement, shifting the national political playing field toward populism and setting the stage for this peasant-turned-teacher to assume a founding role in the establishment of a new political faction, the Chinese Communist Party. By 1935, he'd shed his peasant teacher and librarian titles for good, taking on his new role as the sole leader of the CCP. And in 1949, his forces routed the nationalist government, forcing them to withdraw to Taiwan and allowing for the establishment of the People's Republic of China, a new single-party state he would preside over in one form or another until his death. Under his rule, the first leader of China's CCP would amass a death toll rivaling that of history's most horrific despots, killing millions through famine while telling his inner circle that it's, quote, better to let half the people die so that the other half can eat their fill.
Damn.
State-sanctioned violence saw still more killed, imprisoned, and tortured. And amid these violent purges,
Yeah, so basically Thanos, but in real life without the finger, like literally letting people die. That's fucked up.
thousands reportedly opted to end their own lives rather than meet a far worse fate in the hands of his CCP. Today, the blood-soaked legacy of this teacher-turned-revolutionary, revolutionary-turned-politician, and politician-turned-tyrant remains powerful, with a massive portrait of the man looming tall over Tiananmen Square, and tens of thousands celebrating his memory on the anniversary of his birthday on December 26th of each year. But this year, on what would have been Chairman Mao Zedong's 131st birthday, those celebrations were punctuated by the reveal of not one, but two new stealth aircraft meant for service in China's rapidly modernizing military. These platforms, adorned with angular and stealthy features and lacking in vertical tail surfaces, highlight just how quickly Mao's China has closed the technological gap that once defined Sino-American relations, challenging the
I mean, what would Mao think of today's China? Like, is that like what Mao was doing? Is that like communistic? Because modern China is like through business with capitalism through America. Most of the Chinese wealth come from doing business with America, right? they'll let go of a lot of their communistic ways, and didn't make the same mistakes Soviet Union did, and actually did business with USA, and like just ramp up the production. They adapt a lot of things from communism, from capitalism, just to make money and become powerful. So would Mao see this China like, okay, that's the same China I left? Would he do that? I don't know.
American global air power hegemony for what may genuinely be the first time in more than a half century. Or at least, that's how it appears at first glance. But to really understand what these advanced new aircraft mean for China and for American security, first glances are not enough. So let's dive deeper into these aircraft, their potential use cases, and what type of threat they may really pose. And let's start with the Delta Wing J-36. The first of these new stealth aircraft to surface online has reportedly been given the designation J-36, marking what would be the highest numerical designation for a Chinese fighter since the recently unveiled 5th generation J-35. Seen accompanied by the world's only two-seat stealth fighter, the J-20S, the J-36's modified Delta Wing design seems reminiscent of the J-20 in the same way the developmental F-16XL was an extension of the original F-16 design. And indeed, that similarity may speak to the intended operational use case for this stealthy aircraft. The General Dynamics F-16XL was a cranked arrow wing derivative of the F-16A that competed with the F-15E Strike Eagle in the mid-80s for the U.S. Air Force's enhanced tactical fighter competition. And while the Strike Eagle ultimately won out thanks to its high performance and lower manufacturing cost, the F-16XL demonstrated just how valuable incorporating that broader wing configuration could be for certain types of mission sets. The F-16XL's cranked arrow design improved the aircraft's lift-to-drag ratio and allowed for nearly double the onboard fuel capacity, and as a result, it could carry twice the payload of a standard F-16 to targets as much as 44% further away. Thanks to improved aerodynamic efficiency in conjunction with that added lift, the F-16XL could even outperform the smaller and lighter F-16 in a drag race, besting the F-16A's top speed at high.
Yeah, but that is not F-16 jobs though. The whole point of F-16 is like it's nimble and it's like better at dogfighting. Otherwise, you have F-15. Why do you need F-16, right? I mean, sure, there's a gap in between which F-16XL can fill. I guess why not?
Altitudes by better than 300 knots, or roughly 345 miles per hour. And perhaps most notable of all, the much larger relative size of the F-16XL allowed for an astonishing 29 hardpoints, making it possible for this Viper derivative to carry more 250-pound bombs into combat than any aircraft of its type. And like the F-16XL, the J-36's center fuselage is directly reminiscent of those found on China's existing J-20 and even to some extent the J-35, with slightly different intake design and a larger overall size to accommodate larger payloads. However, from there, the design does depart pretty dramatically from China's previous stealth fighters. Perhaps most notable about the J-36's design is its lack of standing vertical tail surfaces. This design element is commonly associated with 6th generation fighters. You can't see my air quotes, but I assure you they're there. And they offer several advantages in terms of low observability, even if it comes at the expense of technical complexity and some reduction in aerobatic maneuverability. Stealth fighters like
Not some, a lot. Like if you don't have that, like you're not gonna be able to like make quick maneuvers, like like turn and all that shit, all the Top Gear, all the Top Gun shit that you can think of, right? But then again, like modern planes are not gonna be part of a dogfighting, so why would you need that anyway, right? If you need that, you're screwed anyway, type of thing. So why put it there?
America's F-22 or China's J-20 are generally designed to limit detection and targeting against high-frequency radar arrays that are capable of producing what we usually call a weapons-grade lock. Or, in other words, they have the fidelity required to guide a weapon into an airborne target. But some facets of traditional fighter designs meant to improve aerobatic performance, things like their big gaping jet inlets and their standing vertical tail surfaces, can sometimes produce a detectable resonance against lower frequency radar arrays that themselves aren't actually capable of guiding a weapon. By combining high and low frequency arrays, advanced air defense systems can, at least in theory, detect a stealth fighter via that low frequency array and then use that to orient their high frequency array to reduce the time required to secure a lock once that stealth fighter does close to within the system's targeting envelope. By eliminating those standing tail surfaces, a stealth fighter can reduce the threat posed by these sorts of systems. Eliminating those standing vertical tail surfaces also dramatically reduces the aircraft's radar return from angles other than head on, which is usually the focal point for a fighter. And this makes them much more difficult to detect and, importantly, to target from other angles, like from the side. This all-aspect stealth has been depicted in renders released depicting the US Air Force's next-generation air dominance fighter and the US Navy's FA-XX fighters, respectively, as well. But while that tailless design might be the first thing that catches your attention, the J-36's unique engine layout is arguably the most unusual aspect of this aircraft, and it may be the most telling about its intended role. Unlike China's J-20 and J-35, both of which are twin-engine stealth fighters, the J-36 carries 3 engines. 2 are seemingly fed through intakes on either side of the.
Yeah, that is the one, right? Like, how much stealth does that compromise, though? 3 engines, right? And can they do the same thing as Northrop Grumman can do with like hiding the heat thing they do? I guess I don't know, with the B2 and everything, right? So yeah, obviously, like they increase stealth by removing the any vertical things it might have. So okay, better stealth, right? Like all the things Sandbox just said with the low frequency, high frequency, it's not gonna be easy to detect that way. What about like all the heat coming from the 3 engines, the noise and things, right? I don't know. To me, to me, it still feels like this could be a bomber-esque type of thing. It's not really bomber, but like something intended for that. Maybe like how F-35 was just like uh, made into where like it can fit a nuclear bomb, so it can launch a nuclear strike. F-35 can do that. So maybe this is something like that, a deterrence or something. Who knows?
Fuselage, while the third intake is positioned atop the aircraft. And before you leave a comment, I know there are people online claiming that third engine is a scramjet. There is no evidence to substantiate that claim, and it wouldn't even make much sense. And I know other people are claiming this aircraft can operate in space, but the fact that it has air intakes alone should show you that that isn't true either. At the rear of the aircraft, each of these engines exhaust through outlets that look to be similar to those found on Northrop's YF-23, which suggests a lack of thrust vector control, or the ability to orient the outflow of thrust independent of the aircraft, but this does benefit a reduction in both radar and infrared detectability. But it is worth noting that the trailing edge of the aircraft is just chock full of moving control surfaces, including segments behind those trough-style exhaust outlets, potentially giving it some minimal degree of thrust vectoring capabilities, which could be enough to benefit flight control at very high altitudes, where the thinner air really limits the efficacy of standard moving control surfaces. It's currently believed that these 3 engines are likely WS-10Cs, the same interim engine powering China's J-20 fleet, while development continues on its intended and more powerful WS-15 power plants. Though, as famed aviation journalist Bill Sweetman has rightly pointed out, it's at least possible that that third center-mounted engine might be a higher bypass design, meant to allow for better performance at high speeds and altitudes, though, as Sweetman also points out, that would be a big logistical headache to support. It's also possible that the 2 outer engines could provide.
Yeah, but I mean, would China care though? Would CCP care if it's a logistical nightmare, right? I mean, I don't know, man. So it's really interesting to see like how engineers, right, scientists, engineers analyzing this just by photo. Like imagine like think theoretically reverse engineering. They're like, what could that have been? Like people have theories and things. Obviously, it's really hard to pinpoint what they're going with because that's how engineering works. You try to make something, come across a problem, you try to solve it, and there you go, a third engine or something like that. Who knows?
provide differential thrust to aid in maneuvering. But regardless, the aircraft's delta wing design and three-engine arrangement clearly point toward prioritizing high-speed, high-altitude flight over
Interceptor.
longer ranges than any existing Chinese fighter. The payload bay, which, like the fuselage itself, is similar to that of the J-20, appears to be longer. And as Thomas Newdick and Tyler Rogaway have pointed out at the War Zone, it's all but certainly deeper, allowing for not only larger payloads, but likely the internal carriage of larger individual weapons. In short, this all points toward an aircraft meant to engage adversary targets at significant ranges, leaning on advanced avionics and low observability rather than aerobatic performance to win air-to-air fights. In fact, because of this emphasis on longer ranges and larger payloads, some have wondered if this aircraft may not be a fighter at all and may instead be the product of the JHXX program that aimed to field a regional bomber. But that seems a bit unlikely to me. Publicly
Interceptor
available
bomber.
information points to that regional bomber program being headed by China's Shenyang Aircraft Corporation. While this aircraft and the J-20S that accompanied it during its test flight seem to operate out of the Chengdu Aircraft Corporation's headquarters in Chengdu, China. But more broadly speaking, debate about whether this aircraft is a heavy fighter or a regional bomber is really sort of based on an outdated understanding of tactical aircraft as a whole. As we've discussed about America's B-21 Raider, the line between dedicated fighters and bombers has blurred significantly in recent years and promises to all but fade into history in the years ahead.
Yeah, but that's for America, though. America with its technology, its targeting system, right? A bomber can, like precisely strike a target, might as well be a fighter, but that's for America so far. We haven't seen other countries doing that yet, right? So, I mean, China, if China making that, it doesn't mean it's similar thing the way like America's planning. It could be for the specific purpose. It could be something like interceptor. It could be something like a bomber, mini bomber. Who knows?
As advanced onboard systems make it increasingly possible for all combat aircraft to carry both air-to-ground and air-to-air payloads. The addition of drone wingmen, believed to be a focus for China's 6th-gen fighter efforts as well as America's, only further dismisses the importance of distinguishing larger fighters from smaller bombers. Ultimately, these designations just don't matter as much as the capabilities these aircraft bring to bear. But the J-36 wasn't the only new stealth aircraft China revealed on Mao's birthday, and just hours after its first images surfaced online, it was joined by another, as yet unnamed, stealth aircraft with a different tailless design.
Damn.
This other stealth aircraft, which seems to be an uncrewed drone, is believed to be the product of the aforementioned Shenyang Aircraft Corporation, which was also behind the development of the recently unveiled J-35. This twin-engine platform carries a variation on a lambda wing design, which does offer some benefits over trapezoidal delta wings, including increased aerodynamic efficiency, but does increase manufacturing complexity and traditionally requires increased weight in the form of structural reinforcement. The use of two engines and lighter landing gear in this aircraft, as well as its overall smaller size, all point toward a more conventional role. And in fact, this aircraft may even be a CCA-type drone meant to fly alongside the next generation of Chinese fighters.
China's dropping like planes and drones left and right in same day. That's some flex. I mean, you have to admit that. But yeah, it could be a drone, right? Or it could be a standalone drone for to do drone things. Oh, I'm guessing SR-72 is going to be drone, right? So some drone with a certain job, or like he said, or it could be like for the 6th generation planes. It's going to accompany that. Who knows?
Tough to say at this point, but like the J-36, its tailless design does benefit efforts to improve the aircraft's all-aspect stealth. But for many of you, the question you may be here to answer is whether or not these aircraft are something you should lose sleep over. The revelation of these two new stealth jets was met with widespread concern over what their introduction could mean for the future of American air superiority. But objectively, these concerns are, at least currently, based more on internet hyperbole than on reality. By most accounts, both of these aircraft made their first flights in December of 2024, and with no official statements regarding their programs, they both appear to be in the earliest stages of testing. China's J-20, for instance, made its first flight in 2011 and saw 6 more years of concerted development before entering service in 2017. China's FC-31 and its derivative, the J-35, saw its first flight in 2012 and is currently projected to enter service tentatively in 2026. Today, there are believed to be just 3 flying prototypes associated with the FC-31 and J-35 program. But even doing that sort of math might be getting ahead of ourselves. We currently don't know whether these aircraft are the equivalent to America's X-planes, or experimental aircraft never meant to go straight into service at all, but rather to serve as test beds for emerging technologies that can be integrated into later designs. They could also be technology demonstrators, which serve a similar purpose but are meant to demonstrate and mature technologies meant to find their way into a later design that's already under active development. Of course, they could also be prototypes of new fighters meant to enter service in a similar form to how they look today. But even prototypes often see.
Yeah, I don't think we can really expect China to work the same way USA does, because USA is a democracy. China is not the same way. Precedent for life. So would CCP do something just for demonstration's sake? Because in USA, like, you have to convince a lot of people. You have to show something, convince senator, convince Congress people. Like, so you need this kind of a thing, like, oh, look at this thing now and shit like that. You don't have to do the same thing in China, basically, right? It's like, like CCP says something, okay, you take it underway. It's happening now, right? There is no back and forth that you have to do in a democracy. So is it? I don't know. It's probably some kind of a prototype or something that's going to be a thing in the future. I don't think it's just for like like, look at what we can do type of thing, right? They're not looking for funding, because CCP would have given them funding anyway, and they're not going to demonstrate something just to get money from CCP. They would have approached them anyway. CCP would have like given them clear, like, okay, go ahead, do that type of way. It's not a democracy, right? So yeah, I don't think it's something like that. But yeah, it is probably the next version they're working on, right? Like, China can do that, right? China has the money, right? So why not?
Significant design revisions before making their way into service, particularly when bringing new technologies to bear. In other words, what we're seeing in these pictures and videos out of China are the technological equivalent of newborn babes that still have a lot of maturing to do before they can offer any kind of tactical or strategic value to China's military. And
Again, we don't know that either. Maybe, I mean, it's still need maturing to do, but how much time is it? Maybe in 3-4 years, like, they'll be done, like, okay, this is entering service, and we kept this from people. We didn't want this information to leak out, so we don't know what stage of development they're in, right? It could be something like it will take 10-15 years before it can enter service, or it could be something like in 3-4 years they'll enter service. This is like a cutting edge technology, and we kept it under wraps before we felt comfortable enough to reveal it. We don't know.
in fact, despite their significant differences, these aircraft may even be competing for budget allocations, meaning only one of them or neither of them may ultimately find their way into service. Which, of course, brings us back to what the internet really wants to argue about. Whether these new Chinese fighters mean China has surpassed American air power technology and will soon emerge as the first nation to field a sixth-generation fighter. The truth is, fighter generational designations don't actually mean much of anything at all, and truly there are no universally accepted definitions for any generation, let alone the technology required to justify a sixth-gen moniker. But semantics notwithstanding, it's important to understand the difference between showing new aircraft designs and having them. America began its early developmental efforts toward fielding what you might call a sixth-gen fighter all the way back in 2014.
Yeah, thing is, I don't think any military or government cares. I don't think America cares. Oh, this is sixth generation. They don't care. That's the reason they hold NGAD. Because if they can get the same thing out on F-35 Block 4, why we need NGAD right now? Like keep it under development. We'll think about it in the future. F-35 can do the job. Why not? Type of shit. So all military and governments are about efficiency. They don't care about like semantics and like designation. Oh, is it sixth generation? Is it eighth generation? No one cares. So China might be one of those things. They are just trying to make the best plane they can just to outcompete USA with whatever technology they have at the moment, right? Is it going to be something better than USA has? Is it going to be something? Is it going to be like? Is it going to have drones? Maybe it doesn't have drones, but it has everything else, right? Fuck it. Maybe it has laser weapon as well, but it doesn't have drones. So is that not going to be sixth generation? Is that not going to be something better technology? Who knows?
with the commissioning of a study entitled the Dominance Initiative. By 2020, this effort had already produced at least one flying technology demonstrator that, according to former Air Force official Will Roper, had already set some kinds of performance records. And it's now understood that this effort, now known as the Next Generation Air Dominance Program, has produced at least 3 flying prototypes, and that a production contract would have been awarded in 2024 to actually start building these jets had the Air Force not found itself in a budgetary hole it couldn't dig its way out of. The Air Force's subsequent analysis of the program recently concluded that the effort is indeed worth its admittedly immense cost, with each NGAD fighter expected to ring in at around $300 million apiece. But the outgoing Biden administration will leave the final decision to the incoming Trump administration, who will need to find a way to fund continued development and production of these new fighters if they decide to move ahead with the program.
The way Trump is going about, I think Trump has the message right now. Like, why waste money in anything that we don't need? That's the message he's putting out in past month or so. So going by that, I think he's not gonna resume it unless he is convinced like we definitely need this. Unless he's like, but then again, like Trump is all about flexing. He has been for that for decades now. So maybe him like, oh wait a minute, China has sixth generation. Why can't we? So maybe he'll revise it. But if he's one of those people now, like I don't care about all that flexing shit, right? I don't think that way anymore. Why are we wasting money? So he might not. He might like, okay, what's wrong with F-35 Block 4 type of thing? Who knows?
Ultimately, there's no real way for us to know by looking at China's aircraft and testing if they've managed to actually bridge the tech divide in terms of avionics, long range kill webs, and maybe most importantly, the functionality of AI powered wingmen that are meant to fly alongside these crewed aircraft. But even if we give China the benefit of every doubt we can, and we assume their hardware and software is every bit as capable and dangerous as the systems found in America's top tier fighters, that would still place China roughly 4 to 5 years behind America's 6th gen fighter efforts in the very best of circumstances. That is, if America's NGAD and FAXX programs do continue as intended anyway. But even if China does win the race to fielding new fighters before American or European efforts for that matter, that's not necessarily a victory either.
I think it is. I think you're really underestimating the whole psychology behind this. If China finally overtakes USA in something like tangible, something like real, not just like oh we have the biggest navy because we have the most number type of thing. Like people dispute that all the time. Like what about the tonnage? That's not really anything, right? What would be like? Wait a minute, we made the sixth generation first before even USA did. That is a big ass thing just because how USA has been working. What is the Monroe Doctrine? Whatever doctrine is, right? Like getting involved in other countries around the world, so you're safer in home because shit eventually comes to your doorstep anyway. That's how US has been operating for decades now, since the Cold War. USA has been like, oh, I'm above every single country and more powerful than every single country, and I have my fingers dipped in every pot type of mentality. And if that USA falls behind China, that is a big psychological thing. That is a shift in like global politics and every global thing. Like, okay, China is finally overtaking USA.
As we've discussed time and time again on this channel, being the first to claim new technologies are in service will win you headlines. But fielding the right new technologies will win you wars. So
I
while
mean, yeah,
China
based on if you're talking about wars, yeah, I don't think even if China develops sixth generation, if China and USA happens, China's not going to win because of that. Obviously, there's that, but that's like last stage thing you're thinking about. I don't think there's ever going to be major war between US and China because that would end only one way, everybody dead. So that's not going to happen. But it's a psychological war. It's like global, standing and everything. There's way too many things online here.
China's new stealth jets don't pose the kind of threat that could make me lose any sleep at night, they do serve as a powerful reminder that famed Marine General and former Defense Secretary James Mattis was right when he said, America has no preordained right to victory on the battlefield. Make no mistake, the skies are increasingly contested, and America has no preordained.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, sixth generation fighter. I mean, this was a really good video, like too good information. Like I expected that from Sandbox. But yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I guess we'll see. Alright, well, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you next time.